Hello again. My brain's just totally not working today. How are you? I've got a spare few hours this afternoon, and the boys are being looked after, and I thought I should really, it's been 3 years now since Leo was born, I should film my birth story. It's a happy one in the end, but it wasn't a happy labour and delivery. So I am going to get quite graphic. I mean, that's sort of subjective anyway, but I'm just going to try and be as honest and just true to my memory of it. I've got loads of notes, so this video is probably going to be really long. I've watched so many of these amazing birth and delivery stories, labour and delivery, birth stories, and I just think every single one is so valid, and it's just something that you can't really explain unless you've been through it, and every one is so different. So I think I've got some important things to say on it. So even though it's not the most ideal one, it's not textbook or anything, it's just my experience, and hopefully it will help if you're pregnant or gonna go into labour. It's not there to scare anybody or be a horror story or anything. It's just my personal experience, and I think really it is a bit sugar coated because there's been 3 years that have passed, so a lot of the gory details have kind of faded a bit, so I'm not as emotionally attached to the whole thing as I was when it was really fresh in my mind. So yeah, our due date for Leo, he's 3 now. I think it was like the 12th of June, yeah, and he was born on the 15th, so just 3 days, not 3 years, 3 days after his due date, which first baby, I was expecting to go quite a while afterwards because there wasn't really, I mean, I don't know, I didn't really watch a lot of YouTube videos with, I mean, there would have been around and stuff, but to be honest, I just asked like my mum and Matt's mum and Matt's sister, just not long since had a baby, and so I was just asking them like, how, my grandma, how was it for you? And I mean, my grandma's birth stories are just like, she's Superwoman, just literally amazing. And maybe I should get her to do, that'd be so cool, wouldn't it? Yeah, maybe we should do that. But anyway, so I'll start at the beginning. So it was the heat of summer when I was heavily pregnant with Leo. I'd started with, they were the Braxton Hicks contractions. I'd had those for a long time. I can't remember exactly like when they started, but they were building up, and it was getting to the point where I just, like, my bump was so big and it was itchy and everything, and the heat, it just really didn't help. So I just used to go for baths and just try and relax as much as I could. So around the 6th of June, I started noticing they were really ramping up, these contractions in my bump. And I'd heard about, I should have done a bit of research for this video, because again my mind's a bit foggy, but the really, really early stage of labour, not when you're sort of dilating, but the days or weeks leading up to it, a lot of women get to the point where they're actually having contractions, but it's slow labour, and that's what I was having. And it's almost like, because nothing's really happening, or at least nothing quick, because pregnancy is such a sort of, it's a slow burner. It's like things are so gradual, even though symptoms can be different for everybody, peaks, troughs, you know. Pregnancy in general, it's a slow process. It's over many months, and getting to what I was very naive and I knew, like, oh, labour's probably going to hurt, and I'm probably going to need pain relief, so you know, you go through all of sort of your birth plan with your midwife and everything, and I was really open to, you know, whatever. I was happy to have injections if I needed them, or the one thing that I really, really didn't want before going into it was, I didn't want an epidural, because I've suffered with back pain since my late teens, and I can't let anybody go near my back, even going to the doctors for pain medication and stuff before, when it's really been bad. I can't even stand them examining me, so the thought of an epidural was just like, no, I can't. I just don't want one. So I think I'd even written it on there like as a last resort, but no, I don't want one. And again, really naively, I'd never really thought of the idea that there was the potential, because it's always 50-50 really, even though statistics sort of show that most women will have a vaginal birth. That's the route I thought I was going to have. I thought there's no point really reading up on anything the caesareans, because I probably won't have a caesarean. So that was very naive, even though my mum had had an emergency caesarean with me. She was 2 weeks overdue. Hope you don't mind me saying this, Mum. Total superwoman again. And yeah, so again, it was this is going to be a really long video, I'm so sorry. Yeah, so my blood pressure, I was taking that at home just because I'd had, like, my feet were swollen, and again, because it was a really hot summer that year, I don't know if you remember, 2017. I was just, yeah, tired and just fed up and really excited, but my body had got to that point where you just sort of like, oh, just get this baby, you know, like Rachel in Friends, so she's like, get the baby out of me. It was sort of getting to that, but this is like before labour had really started. I just had like the contractions for weeks, and then the days leading up to the actually going into labour were, you know, they were ramping up a bit. It's a little, well, it's not unrelated because it is part of my birth story, and I wish it wasn't, but it is. The Monday, so I think it was, I can't remember what days are, but anyway, the beginning of the week that I actually had Leo and went into labour and everything, there was, I was having a bath in the afternoon. It was about, I don't know, like 4 o'clock or something, and I'd got the windows open because it was really hot, and I could just like smell smoke, and I thought, oh, maybe someone's having a barbecue, but it's a bit early, and didn't really think anything of it, and I could hear like this crackling sound and didn't really think anything of it. And then it got to like 20 minutes later, I'd got out of the bath and thought, this is weird, like the sound's getting louder, I'm gonna get out of the bath. I kind of went from relaxed to sort of alert, and there was a fireman knocking on the door. I'd just literally whipped some clothes on, and he was saying, you need to evacuate your house. The neighbour's house, which was like next door but one to us, is on fire. And I was just like, what do you mean? Is this a joke? And he was just like deadly serious, like, no, you need to get all your stuff. And I was like, I'm pregnant, like I could go into labour at any point, like I'm past my due date now. And he was just like, look, he was very sort of polite but very urgent as well. So he was just like, you need, and I was like, where am I going to go? And he was just like, you just need to evacuate. So he really kindly picked up my labour bag, which was like my hospital bag that was next to the door, and he just like picked that up, and I said, I've got a house rabbit, and he's just like, just forget about the rabbit, just, you need to go, we need to leave now. And I just had to leave. Just had to leave the house with my bag. And luckily, like, Matt was like, I don't know, this is really blurry in my mind, like the time and everything, but there was he like pulled on the drive, and then we just literally had to go. And Matt knows that I've got this, like, well, I think everybody probably does, like, I've got like a huge phobia of like fire. I hate the idea of it and everything. I don't like fireworks. I don't like bonfire night. It just frightens me so much. And he was just like, he rang me. Actually, I think he rang me before the firemen came to the door, and he was just like, oh, I don't know if I can get out down our road, it's all cordoned off and there's like fire engines. And I was just like, I don't understand. It was just a nightmare. I don't know. And obviously the first thought I had in my head was obviously get to safety, but also like, what about the people in the house? Like, are they okay? Like, are they you know, you just so many things going through your mind. And I was just in shock, and he was just like, just don't look back at the house, it's, you know, it's really bad. And I did. I couldn't help but look, and it was just literally the whole house was on fire, and even the garage was on fire, and the trees outside the house were on fire, and it was just like something from hell. It was just awful. And like, people were hysterical, and luckily the family got out, they were rescued, and even the dog was rescued, and the pups. I don't know why I'm getting so emotional about it, but yeah, they were all fine. But it was really scary. Like, I've never been in that situation before, and hopefully never will be, but everything was fine. I don't know why I'm getting so emotional about the dogs getting out. Well, thank God they did, but anyway, God. Yeah, so I thought, shit, maybe this is going to put me into labour, because, you know, if this doesn't, I don't know what will. So, oh, God, memories. So that was a bit of a drama, and we literally had to, well, we were safe and everything, but we couldn't take our car because all the hoses and everything were across the drive, so you couldn't reverse over them because they were using it for the water. And so we were literally like stranded and worrying about the family whose house was like on fire, and I was just like waddling around our village like, oh God, like, what are we gonna do? Where are we gonna go? Like, can we even go home tonight because of the smoke? And it was like there was explosions happening and everything, because it was like in the garage, where I think the fire started in the garage, so everything that was like flammable was like exploding. There was the car on the drive was on fire. It was just, oh my God, super scary. So I said, because obviously I've got this like irrational fear of it as well, I said to Matt, like, let's just go, please, I just want to go, I just want to go away from here. And he was like, where are we gonna go? And I just said, well, I'll ring my mum or my dad, or like someone will hopefully come and pick us up. And all the neighbours, I'm gonna get emotional again, all the neighbours who lived on sort of the main road of the village that we lived in at the time were just so nice, because they could see I was heavily pregnant, and they were like, do you want to come and sit in our garden, do you want something to eat or drink? Or they were just so nice. And I was just and the contractions had started getting worse than what they were. But anyway, I wasn't actually in labour at that. I was sort of very, very early stages, but it wasn't labour properly, if you know what I mean. So that was a bit scary. The day after all of that, that night we got to go home. They rang us and said, like, it's okay, it's safe for you to come home, because we thought we were going to have to spend the night at my parents, or Matt's parents. And they said it's safe for you to come home, so we did, and managed to sort of try and get a bit of sleep. And then I had I don't know if it was the bloody show or whatever it's called, but I lost the mucus plug, so I knew that labour is not far away. Excuse me, I'm just going to have a drink. So yeah, and that day I was just sort of trying to calm down, try not to think about the fire, and just you know, hydrate myself, try and look after myself that day. So early hours at the 14th of June, early hours in the morning, so like 3:30, I was getting really restless, and I ran a bath, and I was just in the bath, and like the pains were just they were starting to, you know, like wake me up and stuff. And then I got dry, got back into bed, and then about 4 o'clock I rolled over in bed and heard like a pop, and I thought it might be my pelvis, because not far into the pregnancy I started with the SPD, so like the pelvic girdle pain, but really bad. I had to go to physio and everything. I had to leave work early, and it was just awful. So I thought it might be that, but then I tried to get out of bed, and as I was starting to kind of sit up or roll, because I'd got a massive bump, I just felt like warm water sort of just coming out of me. And I thought at first, like, have I wet myself, or I don't know. And I thought, no, because it doesn't feel well, it doesn't feel that like that. And when I stood up, it was literally just gushing out of me, just all over the floor. And we had like a wooden floor in our bedroom, so you could hear it. It was like someone had emptied a bucket onto the floor. And I woke Matt up and I said, my waters have broken. And he just sort of like jumped out of bed and was like, okay, what do we do now? But he was calm. So we rang the hospital, and my contractions started thick and fast. Like they had started, they were proper, and I knew that they were different to what I'd been having. So I rang the hospital, and they said, is this your first baby? And I said, yeah. And they said, you know, what's happened? Told them, and they were sort of like really chilled about it, and just said, you know, have a shower, get your things together, and then come in and we'll check that your waters have gone. So we headed to the hospital, and they did an internal examination, which I hate having done. I'd had one a couple of days before when they do like the stretch and sweep, and that was just agony. I hated that. And you know sometimes when you just feel a bit like, I struggle with cervical smears, and I don't think I have got a very high, I think I've got a very low pain threshold, but I think with certain things some people are fine with it and it doesn't hurt, and some people aren't, and I'm at the end where it does hurt a lot. So I really struggled with having the internal examinations, and they checked me, and they told me to bring the sort of like soak up the waters on a pad, like on a maternity pad, and like bring them in a bag. So I'd literally got like a bag full of these maternity pads, and they were like, yeah, why have you brought all these? And I was like, well, because again, like, I'd been into hospital, I think not a couple of days before because of like low movement, so I'd not been able to feel Leo. And sometimes, again, depending on, most of the time they're brilliant and there's no problem, but there are a few times that I've had in both pregnancies where I've been in that situation and you feel like you're judged completely before you even get through. And sometimes you can't help but remember those times, even though most of the time everyone's really nice and they don't judge you. But I do feel, I don't know if it's because with being plus size, maybe, I don't know, I sort of do get that vibe there, which is not very nice. And it certainly shouldn't happen, because everybody should be treated exactly the same no matter what. So yeah, something to think about. What I would say with that as well is that if you are pregnant, and whatever stage you're on in your pregnancy, just going from my experience, if you ever do feel uncomfortable or judged or, you know, anything like that, and you don't feel right, you've got rights and you don't have to have that person. Well, I certainly was, and I'm naturally one of those people where I don't like confrontation. I don't want to say anything. I just want, you know, anything really for just an easy existence. I don't want to make a fuss or say anything, even if I'm being unfairly treated. But, you know, don't put up with it if that is the case. You know, you are within your rights to ask. You should receive the care that you're entitled to and that you deserve. And, you know, it doesn't matter what, whether it's to do with size or something else, it's irrelevant, and, you know, and you should get that care. And if you've got any problems, most of the time, you know, there should be somebody there that you can talk to, and, you know, it's people that are staff that are understanding and non-judgmental, because that is how it should be. I've had some amazing midwives and other staff, you know, during my pregnancy, who have been wonderful. There's been the odd few that have been very judgmental and made life harder, and as a pregnant woman, you don't need that. You don't need that anyway. If you're in hospital, it's not right. But I just wanted to kind of make that, because I was really naive my first pregnancy, and I'm not anymore. So I would say something now. Yeah, so what happened then? I'm going off on a right tangent. So yeah, no, they said my waters had gone, but there was no progression. So the plan was they wanted me to go home to labour until I'd progressed more, and they were going to book me in, I think, for like the following day to have an induction, because my waters had gone. So they said, go home to labour, and if you know, we'll bring you back at sort of 5 o'clock today, and we'll check if you've progressed any, and if you haven't, then we'll induce you in the morning. And I just went with whatever, because I just thought, well, they know what they're doing, I'll just, yeah, okay. Even though I was already in a lot of pain, and I felt as though they didn't believe me, because I think if my waters hadn't have gone, they definitely wouldn't have believed me. But because they had, they were sort of like, well, you know, that's happened now, so you're at higher risk for infection and stuff, so we need to kind of keep things moving along, and if it doesn't happen naturally, then we'll have to intervene with an induction. At no point it wasn't mentioned the Caesarean word was not mentioned at this point, and it wasn't even in my head, because again I thought, oh well, okay, that's obviously how it's going to go. So we went home, we got some food, I was on the birthing ball, and I couldn't, there was just no position or anything I could do. I was just so thirsty and tired because we'd been up sort of since the early hours, and there was just nothing that I could do for any relief. They were like, take paracetamol, you know. I didn't have a TENS machine or anything, but the birthing ball helped a tiny bit with my pelvic pain, but no help during the contractions, and they were coming on now. I don't know exactly the timings because it's so long ago, but they were getting stronger and they were getting closer together. So like Matt was timing them and stuff, but my mum had come over at this point as well, because I rang her after we'd been to the hospital and said, don't want to worry you, but my waters are broken and I'm contracting, but they don't want to admit me yet because I'm not dilated, so I've got to go home. So she came over to see how I was doing, and I can't remember exactly what time this was, maybe like 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and it was just getting really bad. Like the pain was I couldn't breathe through it anymore, and I really needed a wee. So I went upstairs and I was sat on the toilet, and I couldn't get off the toilet. It was just, I felt so just, I can't do that. I just felt so hopeless, like I can't do this. I'm never going to be able to give birth. I can't even labour. I need help, like I need some more support. I mean, Matt and my mum were amazing. They couldn't have done any more, and I know that they were doing their best, like more than that. But I mean, in terms of like pain relief, I needed that support, and I felt like I needed to be back at the hospital because something didn't feel right. I couldn't sort of tell you or put my finger on what it was, but I just thought, I know people say that labour's painful, but this is just, it's totally out of the ballpark on what I expected the pain to be. So we went back to the hospital. I rang them and said, I can't stand the pain, the contractions are getting worse. I couldn't actually talk, Matt had to talk for me, and it was just, yeah. And they said, okay, come back in and we'll check you again. And the car journey there was awful. I was just in so much pain, and it just took what seemed like years to get to the delivery suite. I got there, and I'm gonna have to look at my notes again because it's very foggy. They did not an x-ray, sorry. They happened. They did another internal examination, and there was not much progress. It was like a centimetre or something. And so what was I can't remember what my centimetres were, but I wasn't very much. I was dilating, but very, very, very slowly, not a lot at all, not for the pain that I was in. So I just was, I just felt so hopeless, and I was getting upset, and I just said, you know, oh, they don't believe me, and I just felt like nobody was listening to me, and I was in so much pain that, you know, and you just get to that point where you just think like, I'm not lying about this. This is real. And but you're also in pain, so you can't really be that kind of frank with somebody and be that, you know, you need to help me. And I was just sort of just despairing, really. It was really bad, and I just thought, like, I can't stand to have another internal examination again after this. This is like this. They were so painful for me, and luckily the angel, that is, I don't know what her name was. She was a registrar doctor on the labour ward. I had met her, she was actually caring for me a month before because I was admitted with potential DVT, but it turned out to be okay. I just had a really bad chest infection, and she had been amazing at that time, which was worrying because obviously if I'd have gone into labour then Leo would have been premature and everything, so that's, you know, such a worry too. But yeah, this amazing doctor, I really wish I knew your name because you were just a shining star. Like, I can't, it was just, you know, when things sort of like align and it was like she was meant to be there, or it felt that way anyway. And she was like, and Natasha, I remember you, and she was like, she kind of took over and was my support and like my voice, and she said, okay, like, I know how much pain you're in, like, I believe you, and we're gonna get you help, but right now the ward is full, like the labour rooms are full, there's no space. We need a bit of time to get the ladies, like, you know, discharged and everything. So we're gonna try and get you in, but we need some time. So we need you to go. You can stay on site at the hospital, but we can't give you a room or anything. So there was nowhere for me to really labour apart from just labour around the hospital. And I was just like, I can't. I was in so much pain, but it was my only option. So I was sort of just forced to do that. She was amazing, but it was just like, I just felt so hopeless. And so that's what I did. I had to just, and again, I'm sure there's lots of women who've had to do the same thing, and I'm sorry that you had to do that. It's just that, you know, when you go into labour, you think that you're going to be in a private room and have like access to all the pain meds and everything, and it just wasn't like that at all. And like, again, my waters had broken, they were gone, like there was hardly any fluid in me anymore. So that is, the pain ramps up as well with that. So I just walked. I felt like I was about 100 years old. I couldn't walk. It was so bad. The pelvic pain, and also all of my contractions weren't in my bump, they were in my back. And as I mentioned before, I've got chronic back pain. It hurts all the time. So it was just in an area, you know, as well, where I am already in pain and it already hurts, and you've got no core muscles or anything to help with that. You're in labour, and it was back labour, and I didn't actually find out that I was having back labour until after I'd had Leo. It was way into the future. But if you've ever had back labour, you'll know what I mean. And I hope that you don't ever experience back labour, because it's horrible. It's like so painful. Anyway, fast forward to, I managed to do that for, I don't know, like an hour and a half, 2 hours or something. And it was around 7 o'clock that I came back to the ward. That's when they told me to come back up to like the delivery suite and stuff. And they said, oh, you know, we've got you a room. And so they just sort of took me in, and they were like changing their shifts. So the midwife who was looking after me then was leaving, and there was going to be a new midwife who was going to be with me throughout the labour. I was a bit sad because I'd sort of got to know this other midwife, but it didn't matter, because I thought, well, I'll meet this other one. And again, the pain was so bad that I just thought, well, whatever, because I was just out of it. I stripped off, I ran a bath, and I got in the bath. And the relief I got from the water, it didn't even really touch the sides, but it was enough so that I didn't feel like I was going to die. I know that sounds really dramatic, but the pain was so bad. I met my midwife. I was just in I don't know what position, but I was totally naked, and I just didn't care. I just was at that point where I was in so much pain, and I just felt so helpless. I'd got no go in me at all. I was just exhausted by this point, and because the contraction started at like 4 a.m. and it was now 7 p.m. that day, and it was just relentless. Like there was no break in between, and but also like no progression either, so it's just really draining. And she said, I'm gonna examine you again. I think I got quite upset at that point because I was like, I don't want to be examined again. Again, side note, if you don't want to be examined, you don't have to be examined. I didn't realise that, but she was amazing midwife, and she said, if we examine you, we kind of know where you are. And then also, what I forgot to say, when I met her, I was in that much pain that I begged her for an epidural. And again, like I said before, I didn't want anything. I was petrified of an epidural, but I begged her for one. I said, I'll do whatever it takes. I need an epidural. I need the relief. I can't stand it anymore. And she was amazing, and she was like, okay, we'll get you an epidural. Like, but we need to examine you to see how far along you are, because epidurals can slow down the progression and all of that. So, and I was just like, yeah, whatever, I just want the epidural, I just need the pain relief. So she examined me, and I was around, I don't know, I was just 4 centimetres, so that I was okay to be admitted, even though they were going to admit me anyway because my waters had gone. But I didn't know any of this. Like, I was again so naive with it and thought, oh, you just rock up to the hospital and you get looked after and you have the pain relief, and it doesn't always work like that. So yeah. What happened next? Right, so yeah, from that point on, I was still in agony, still labouring, and she said, you know, we've asked for your epidural. She was amazing. Matt was amazing as well. They were so supportive, and she said, like, you know, we'll get that done as soon as. And I just kept asking, where's the epidural, where's the epidural, I need the pain relief, I can't do it. And she was trying to sort of calm me down and breathe through the contractions, and just try and, you know, try and get me not to the point where I was panicking and getting worked up. And she said, why don't you try gas and air, just, you know, because I said I don't want gas and air, I don't want it. I don't know why. I just was a bit scared of it. Again, it's like the fear of the unknown, isn't it? It's like all of these things are so new to you and like unfamiliar. So, and I was like, I've never even smoked a cigarette, I don't want gas and air. And she was like, it's fine if you don't want it, but maybe give it a try, because I think it might help. And I was petrified. I just really didn't want it. But again, the pain was taking over, and I kind of just got, I wouldn't say brave, but I just sort of said, okay, yeah, I'll try it, and had some, and let's just say the gas and air and myself became very best friends. And even though it didn't take the pain away, it sort of, I mean, I don't even know what it does. It's like laughing gas, isn't it? Is it? I don't know I'm not a scientist, so I'm not even going to pretend to know what it is. But gas and air, if you're frightened of it, don't be frightened. You know, it can make you throw up and stuff. I threw up with it, but it was so worth it. And throwing up's not nice, but it was so worth. Just, it gave me a little bit of relief, enough where I was a bit calmer. So that obviously helped with the pain, because pain's in your mind. If your mind's a bit clearer, I wouldn't say it made my mind clearer, it almost kind of, you feel really drunk on it. And I've never really been properly drunk, so I'm really boring. But it helped. It did help. So I'm glad that she persuaded me to have it. And it got to the point where I was sort of screaming out in pain, and I needed something else. Like and they kept saying the epidural's on its way, and I kept looking at the clock and thinking it's not coming. And I was right, because I asked for it at 7 o'clock at night, so 7 p.m, and I didn't get the epidural until about 2:30 in the morning the following day, so about 5.5 hours, and that was awful. But when the anaesthetist came in, who was going to administer it, I just thought he was a rock star, and I was high on gas and air as well, so I probably said some embarrassing stuff, but I don't care, because he relieved the pain. So I had before that I had diamorphine injection in my leg. That helped a tiny bit, but then back to the contractions again. And yeah, had the epidural at about 2:30 in the morning. It just I was petrified. Had to have it in between contractions, which was hard, because they're like, don't move because it can paralyze you and all this, and it's like, yeah, I know, but the pain. Had it, amazing, instant relief. And then they give you, it's on sort of a drip and stuff, and then after you've had the initial, like, I don't know what the word is, but the initial thing of medication that the anaesthetist gives you, you get a top up in a drip that your midwife manages, so you can top it up when if you get any breakthrough pain or whatever. And guess what? The epidural wore off, so really, in a way, even though the pain was so bad, I wish, and I needed it, but I kind of wish I hadn't have had it, because it was good because it helped me sleep. I slept as soon as I had the epidural, so that got me the sleep was kind of healing, and I felt a bit more, not refreshed because you're in labour, but you get recharged a little bit. But at the same time, I started with the breakthrough pain, and you forget how bad the pain is, and then it comes back with a vengeance, and I was like, I can't cope with this. I started being sick. At one point, I think they pressed the buzzer, and I should have asked Matt, because he knows more than I do, because he was like really present and worried and everything at the time. And I was just off my head on gas and air. Started back on the gas and air again after that, I think, after I'd started with the breakthrough pain. And sorry, it's just this video is going to be really long. Then what happened? And then yeah, they loads of people came in. I don't know exactly what was wrong, but I remember them saying I've got a fever, and I looked at my catheter and it was just red with blood. And they said she's not well and the baby's struggling, and it was just awful. I don't remember what time that was, but I had a vaginal examination at 5:45 in the morning, and I was 8 centimetres. So I also forgot to mention that they put me on the hormone drip. I can't remember what the hormone is now, but it's basically an induction. They'd started that. I didn't even know that I was on that, because I was just so out of it with the pain and everything. And I don't know what happened. Yeah, so something happened, but I was obviously really poorly at one point, and they all came in to help, and I didn't really know what was going on, because something was wrong, and they sort of said, we're gonna have to do, I don't know what time this was either, but it was way into labour, and they said, and the epidural had worn off. They said, we're gonna have to, if you know, if the baby doesn't make an appearance within like the next 10 minutes, we're gonna have to do a caesarean, an emergency caesarean. And I just was like, what? No, I don't want a caesarean. I don't, like, I've gone through enough. I don't want, no, like, I just felt so, I don't even know, like, just, again, just hopeless. Like, I'm never gonna meet him, I'm probably gonna die. Just all the worst thoughts I just had, and I couldn't get out of that hole. It was just horrible. And I just said I just want him to be okay, you know, and I was in pain, so I wasn't saying it like normally. And yeah, they pretty soon after that they took me in to theatre. They wheeled me into theatre, and I begged them. I begged the anaesthetist, who was amazing, and her assistant was amazing as well. Louise was the assistant. I can't remember what the name of the anaesthetist was, but you were amazing. So many happy vibes to you. Thank you. I'll be forever grateful, because you were in charge of my pain relief and, you know, keeping me well. And obviously all the midwives and everyone, the surgeons, everything. Thank you. You're amazing. But yeah, I begged them to give me, let me have gas and air in the theatre, because I was petrified of having to have an operation, because I'd never been in hospital before, apart from like the month before I was due. It was just this horrible irrational fear. I struggle with phobias, and I've got a few and some worse than others, but you know, that was one of my top ones where I just, no, I don't want. But they were like, you know, we're gonna deliver the baby quickly, so they got me into theatre. At this point I was in full on sort of 9 centimetre full on labour, in all the pain. I could feel everything, back labour, and I had to now be prepped to have a spinal block. That's very difficult, because on top of that I was petrified of having to have emergency surgery. It was, I can't explain that situation. It was, all I could do was just hold Matt's hand and just, I don't know, it was so scary, but they looked after me. Sorry, I didn't think I was gonna get this upset, but I didn't think I was gonna come out of there, and I had to just try and focus on getting through that contraction, and then they had that one shot to do the spinal block, and then if they couldn't do that, then they'd have to wait for another contraction, because you've got to be so still for them to sight it. And I think I don't know how many attempts it took, maybe it took 2, and they got in, and then you just go just warm. It almost feels like your waters are broken again. You just go really warm, really heavy, or your legs feel really heavy. And I was still so sort of hysterical and saying like, what if I can feel it? And it was so scary, but I knew that I didn't have a choice. It was just, this was the only way of getting my baby out safe. And they were like, it's fine, like we're gonna look after you, we're gonna be with you the whole time. And the anaesthetist who was the assistant, she was actually pregnant, So she really helped me, and she was so empathetic and just really supportive, and she was like stroking my hair and like looking at me, and she was like, I'm right here, I'm not going to leave you. And my midwife was, and Matt was. So I had all this like support and love around me, but it didn't, and I know that now, but it didn't feel that way at the time. I just felt so alone and just so like, I'm not going to make it through this, which sounds so dramatic, but now, but it did, that's how it felt, and I just want to be really honest about it. And yeah, there was other things that like went wrong and stuff, which I'm not going to go into, but it was, they sprayed you with the cold spray to make sure you know, couldn't feel the pain, and that was all fine. It was a really funny moment actually, now I think back, and I was like, I please don't start until I didn't want to feel anything. And they said, can you feel that? And I was like, no. And they said, you've got a needle in your leg and it's like this long and you can't feel it, so we're okay to go ahead and do. I just didn't believe them that they like numbed me enough, but that was really silly now, but it wasn't at the time. And again, it's okay to be scared. It's natural. It was just another level of scared. So yeah, within a few, well, I'd say within 10 minutes Leo was born. I heard him cry, but I didn't see him, and I knew something was wrong. He was delivered, and they sort of said he's okay, but then he wasn't, and I didn't know really what was happening. And I was at this point I was like feeling really sick, and I was just shaking uncontrollably. Like I don't know if it's something to do with the anaesthetic or I don't know, but there was just nothing I could do. I was just shaking so much, and then they were obviously trying to sew me back up, and I was trying to look for Leo, and I just, and they were like, your baby's here, but I couldn't, he was like here, and I couldn't move my head, because you can't when you're having a caesarean. You're just laying there, and because I was sort of shaking so much, I couldn't turn enough to see him. I do remember actually saying, I did get really mad at one point because my neck was hurting so much, and because I have to sort of tilt you back a bit so that you're not, it's something to do with the position, I don't know. There's a reason why anyway, but you sort of laid on the table and then they tilt you back so you are a bit lower to the floor. You're not on the floor, but they tilt you that angle. I can't explain it very well. So, and I kept saying like, nobody's fucking listening to me, like my neck, like it hurts so much, and they were so nice, but yeah, I wasn't the best patient. And yeah, I couldn't see Leo, and they said I can't even remember, this is all such a blur, but they had to take him down to intensive care, and I didn't know why, whether he was okay, what was wrong. I just had no idea. And they were finishing, I couldn't go obviously because I was being sewn up, so I had to wait until they'd done that, and I just kept thinking, oh my god, I haven't seen my baby and I'm gonna die. I still didn't feel any relief at all, like emotionally. And I'm just gonna get a wipe. Oh, sorry. I'll probably edit this out if I can. Yeah, so didn't see Leo, and it wasn't until, so it was the afternoon when I had the caesarean, and it was about 2 o'clock, something like that, by the time that I'd got wheeled back into recovery, and still no baby. Like my baby had gone. away somewhere to be looked after. I didn't know what was wrong, and I didn't actually get to see him until about 3 a.m. the following day. So I didn't bond. I bonded with him, but I didn't have the opportunity to bond with him like you would expect. I expected to have a straightforward vaginal delivery and have him put on me so that we could do skin to skin and I could bond with my baby, and it was just, no, didn't have that. So that was awful. And my heart will always be a bit broken because of that, and it is for all the mothers that have been through the same thing or never ever get to hold their baby, or don't get to hold their baby for a long while because they're in NICU. So they told we had a student midwife who was with me throughout my whole labour called Mercy, and you were amazing. I keep using the same adjective, but I can't think of, you were just an angel. She kept going to see Leo. She kept going to see Leo and make sure that he was okay, and then coming back to us and telling us, you know, he's alright, but they still have to keep him, and they don't really know. I still don't really know what was wrong. I did have like a birth reflections after all of this, which was very helpful, by the way. If you have a traumatic birth, definitely contact your midwife or your hospital and ask for the birth reflections service that they do, because it was invaluable to me and it helped me heal a lot emotionally from everything. So yeah, Mercy, amazing. And just, there's so many people who I can't even remember their names, like I'll never forget them, but they just, the kindness that they show is, you just can't explain. You don't feel like a number, you feel like they've known you forever, and they just make you feel so at peace, and that even though you really don't feel that way at the time, they just look after you, and it's incredible. I'll just be forever grateful for all of those people that were there, that helped us, and like they saved our lives. Yeah, so I don't know, this has been nearly an hour now. I finally got to meet Leo at about 3 o'clock in the morning the following day, so the 16th of June, and we cuddled. I don't think we did skin to skin straight away. I was so frightened that, like, he was just so delicate and so tiny. I just didn't really, it's like you don't want to hurt them even though you're their mum. They're just so delicate and so little. I mean, I think he was like £7.10 or something, so he wasn't really tiny, but he was just so perfect, and there's nothing like that. It's amazing. You'll know, if you're a mum, you'll know that first, just the bond that you have forever with your children is just so magical. So again, I had no idea what I was doing with breastfeeding, so he'd already had milk, he'd already had formula given, because I was sort of in no state to express any colostrum or anything. the recovery was not good. Straight after surgery, I'd got the shakes really bad, and I don't think I was sick, thank God, but because I was sick a lot in labour. But I actually, before I met Leo, in the afternoon, straight after the recovery, after I'd been put into recovery, my grandma and granddad rang me because they didn't really know what was happening. Told them that Leo had been born, but I'd not seen him, and they were so lovely. They just said, it's okay, you'll be alright. And I remember saying to my granddad, like, I'm itching so much, like it's driving me insane. And he was just like, just ask them for something, like don't be don't be miserable, don't be in discomfort, like they'll get you something for it. And it was just such a support, and my grandma was the same as well, so I'm really thankful for them. Yeah, so I met Leo, didn't want to let him go, well, I didn't have to at that point. It was amazing, but I'm gonna kind of wrap it up a bit now because I know this is going on forever. But I bonded with Leo and loved him immediately, but the fact that we had that distance apart was really hard, and I doubted myself very much as a mum. But all I would say is, just if you are a new mum, or you're gonna be, I know it's easier said than done, but like, please don't be too hard on yourself. I really struggle with mental health, with mental illness, and but even without that, labour and birth are really hard. It's probably one of the hardest things that you'll ever do, even if you have a really positive birth. It will still be hard, even if it's not as hard physically as you thought, and hopefully it won't be, but even if it isn't, emotionally it's very draining, and you've got all your hormones again after you've given birth. That's very difficult. So I would say, just know that you're loved and you're supported, and that if you need any additional support or help, please don't be afraid to ask somebody, even if it's telling your mum and then your mum asks on your behalf, or whatever. It's normal to feel worried, or maybe you feel a bit embarrassed, or you might even feel ashamed. I felt all those things, and it is normal, but there's also when it gets to the point where it's eating away at you, you don't have to struggle. There's help there, and I'd say definitely just know that take the help, and it's there for you. It's there to support you and help you and care for you, and you deserve that. And you've got to look after yourself, because if you don't look after yourself, then you're not going to be the best version of you for your baby either. So it's really, really important. But yeah, so that was my birth story. Recovery was long because it was an emergency, and because I'd laboured for so long as well. It was the worst of everything. I had I think 2 nights, was it 2 or 3 nights in hospital? I think it was 3 nights in hospital, not helped by the following day. The 15th of June, I'd been through, no, was it? No, the 16th of June, so after I'd had, Leo was born on the 15th, but the day after, when I was recovering in hospital and I was getting to grips with a newborn and like feeding and everything, I had obviously no idea what was going on in the world, because you're totally separate from it. But it was hard to hear about Grenfell Tower, and that will be always attached to those memories that I have, because you know, what a tragedy and what an awful thing. Just it was so devastating to hear about that. I felt like I was in like a nightmare dream thing. I didn't think it was real, any of it. So yeah, it was hard. I can't imagine what those people went through. So yeah, very emotional. Still feel an emotional wreck about the whole thing. But Leo was okay, thank goodness. We went home on the 17th, so yeah, like 2 days after. So I had 3 nights in hospital, and the hospital was deserted. There was nobody there because we got discharged at about 10 o'clock at night. The ride home was difficult. I think what I'm going to do is maybe do a separate video on Caesarean recovery, but just very quickly, I think this, I've had another Caesarean since then. It was an elective one. My experience with the emergency Caesarean, also with the prior labour, I had a very bad infection about a week to 2 weeks after. The wound actually opened slightly. The pain was severe. I was actually given oral morphine for it. It was that bad. I don't think, I mean, I wasn't doing anything. I don't think it really could have been avoided. I think it was probably a combination of having gone through such a long, painful labour and then emergency surgery. But as soon as I knew that that was happening, as soon as I was getting the pain at the site of the incision, I rang the hospital. They were brilliant. They took me in. I had to have a Pico dressing, which is like a vacuum dressing. I'll try and put some pictures and some information about it there, because I have a high BMI, so I needed that extra wound care support after, which is why they put it on. But even with that, I still ended up with the infection. So I was on antibiotics and really strong pain meds for a while afterwards. It was very difficult, and you know, I got through it, and yeah, it was difficult. So I don't think really, I think everyone was just in so much like, oh baby, you know, baby Leo's here, which was really nice, but I don't think people really understood how much I'd been through within such a short space of time. You remember what I was saying about pregnancy it's a slow burn, it's a slow process, and labour and delivery is not. It's very fast, and even though my progression was not quick for the time period, even though it was sort of over a few days, it is very fast in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, if you're pregnant, congratulations. I wish you a happy, healthy pregnancy, and you know, all the best for. I hope everything goes really well and you're healthy and happy, and baby's well and happy and healthy too. I'm sure everything will be fine. This is just my story, what happened, and in the end everything was okay. It was tough, but women have had, I'm sure, a lot tougher labours and deliveries than I have. Yeah, that's it. So yeah, if you've got, I'd really like to hear your experiences, or if you've done a video on this, on your labour delivery, and I probably have watched it, but if I haven't, or you want to share it, or you want to write me a comment, or you want to ask me anything, just leave me a comment. That'd be brilliant. I'd really enjoy that. And yeah, any caesarean related questions or labour, delivery, whatever, from a mum to a mum, or somebody who knows someone who's pregnant, it doesn't matter. I'd love to hear from you. So I hope you, if you stuck with me, you're an absolute trooper. Yeah, if you, I hope I can do another version of this video that's maybe a little bit less emotional, but I kind of just, you know, just want it to be honest. And yeah, okay, so I'll see you in my next video. Take care, bye.